forbid you are sitting in this place saying, I don't care about legacy. You need to care about it because somebody's got to live in the life you have. You are passing something down whether you want to or not.
I believe this at the core from the very beginning of time when God created the earth, when he created us. He made us to build. He made us to create. He made us to innovate, to work, to put our hands to the plow. And so I've been talking a lot about frameworks, and I want to present to you this idea, whether you are a stay-at-home parent, whether you're a laborer, a tradesman, an executive, maybe you're a business owner, maybe you're an entrepreneur and you're building out something that's completely brand new for you. We're meant to create and innovate and build things with our hands. However, the mindset we take into all of that matters. And so today I want to break down the framework of an acronym called B.O.S.S. Not like boss as in the top dog, the leader, the whoever. B.O.S.S as in a B.O.S.S, B.O.S.S acronym. Boldness, ownership, strategy, and success. I want to break those down and give us the right mindset to be a boss or implement B.O.S.S. Hey, welcome to the Mindset Mastery Podcast. I'm your host, Coach Sam Velasquez. And listen, I'll be honest, my brain is a little amiss right now. We were just on spring break with our family, which is amazing. And I realized something. Maybe it's because I'm getting older, but I love leaving. Like I love the idea of going somewhere, but it takes me about 48 hours to 72 hours max. And I'm like, I'm ready to go home. I'm ready to get back into just, the normalcy of structure and flow and kind of knowing what's going to happen in the day. As much as I love to get away, again, 72 hours later, it's amazing to me how much I'm ready to get back home. But anyways, so bear with me a little bit as we break this down. And if you're tuning in for the first time, thank you and welcome. I'm glad you're here. And just to be clear and a reminder to myself and all of us, remember this podcast exists so we can continually and always be progressing in the idea of building mindset mastery. I don't think that we ever arrive anywhere. And as long as we're here on this earth in this temporary flesh shoot per se, I think God has designed it in such a way where, number one, we're always trying to draw closer to him in everything that we do. And so he is truly the perfecter of my faith. He's the one whose mind we're to be putting on. It says to put on the mind of Christ. And so this all kind of stirs out of that foundation. But the idea is that we work on our mindset within the context of our faith, our marriage, our family, and our business. And those are just 4 pillar constructs we like to build on here. And so today we're talking about this idea of mastering our work, mastering our business, the things that we go about in our daily lives, whether that, again, is you could be a stay-at-home parent. And listen, for you who are, can I just kudos? Like for those of you who maybe are yet to be a stay-at-home parent, you may be a parent, but you don't necessarily stay at home all the time. Listen, hats off, man. I don't think there's a tougher job, truly, not to sound cliche, than being a stay-at-home parent, whether that is a stay-at-home mom or dad, or both. It just is a different cup of tea. And so I admire that and honor you and all of that as well. But either way, our work can be so many things: parenting, laborers, tradesmen, executives, all this stuff I mentioned earlier. And so I want to break this down so we can truly build a healthy mindset when it comes to business, when it comes to our work. And the first one is just boldness. We need to be bold in what we do. Sometimes we have to embrace, is what I have here, is we have to embrace courage. We have to step out. This idea of being courageous is interesting to me because it doesn't take courage to do something that's generally uncomfortable. We wouldn't call that courage. If anything, it might be, for the lack of better words, just mundane. It's just, well, someone's got to do it, so I'll do it. But if it's not truly outside of our comfort zone, if it's truly not something that is stretching us, that requires us to be courageous, right? And I think maybe the opposite of that, would be maybe cowardice, right? We shy back, we're afraid for the wrong reasons because we're imagining something totally, not true. in our mind, which is why we have to, renew our minds regularly. But the idea is that we'd be bold in our work, that we'd be so brave to step out into the thing that God has called us to do and do it for his glory and unapologetically, if I may boldly say, right? That, you see what I did there? Boldness. So if I may boldly say, you're welcome. My kids would be so happy. They're like, Dad, stop telling dad jokes. But the idea is that we trust God, right, and his promises to guide us in the courageous steps we take, right? The scripture reference I used, I put an email together earlier this week, and the idea was that we would be reminded of this truth that in Joshua 1:9, it tells us to be strong and courageous. And if I take strong and courage, it's to exercise boldness in such a way where we are not afraid. It says, be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. That's what it says. And then it goes on to say, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. And I think about this. I was thinking about Moses. Moses is being asked by God to boldly step out with courage and go get his people, go get the Israelites. If you don't know the story, God's people have been in captivity for years. Moses, gets told, hey, go get my people out. And he's thinking, hey, here's the deal, God. Like, I'm all about it, but there's one little caveat here is I will do it only if you go with me. Only if your presence goes with me will I go. And I think that's a very profound thing, because we aren't being asked to be bold and courageous in our own strength and to just go without necessarily doing it in the strength that God gives us. And so it's that for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. So remember, to be bold, to be a boss, is to have boldness in our work. It's to be courageous in our work, to do things that are sometimes uncomfortable, challenging, and hard. God doesn't say that we won't have challenges. He says that he will be with us in them. And so we can embrace that and have the mindset to be bold in our work. The second thing is the O, right? And boss, I want to be a boss, is ownership. This word is, I think, one of the most pivotal words in today's society that we need to embrace. Ownership, and I would couple it with accountability, okay? When we take ownership of something, right, that's taking responsibility for everything, our words, our actions, the decisions and outcomes. We learn from both the success and the setbacks, right? We own the wins, but we also own the mistakes. If there's something I want to, as a father of 4 kids, and I have teenagers now, like, there are many things. So take this in context. One of the things I would want to make sure I'm doing and setting forth as a father is to ensure that I'm teaching my kids ownership. I want them to remember me for not just the things that I did that were successful in their mind's eye, but that they recognize, oh man, the thing I really appreciate my dad was when he made a mistake, he owned it. And we need to, in order to be a boss, own the wins and the mistakes alike, right? Each one of them is a stepping stone towards growth. Growth isn't just when you're winning. Growth is also when you're failing, when I'm failing, when we are taking ownership of all of it, good, the bad, the ugly. And that's a hard thing to do, right? And it's part of it, even in my notes here, I have that word. It's recognizing that accountability is just part of the journey. It's part of our spiritual journey. In Romans 14:12, it talks about, and it teaches us, it says, so then each of us will give an account of ourselves to God. Right now, I know that all of my mistakes, my sin, my weak, all of those things have been taken care of. And I'm justified through my faith in Christ and what Jesus took on the cross for me. So I get that. However, there still's an account. And it's not going to be like this horrible judgment. It's just saying, hey, listen, everything you do matters. It carries weight, right? And when you own your own actions, okay, when we exercise, meekness and humility, right? And humility as in like a humble strength. And we take responsibility for all outcomes, good and bad. And so to be a boss, you first in your mindset exercise boldness, and then we begin to master the mindset of ownership, right? So be bold, be courageous, but in the follow-up, own everything. I'm just going to say this one last thing on ownership. And just as an example, and you may or may not have children yet, but I think principally you can relate pretty easily, because there's nothing, and this could just be my flesh talking, I'm pretty sure mostly it is, but it's infuriating to me sometimes. It's not the mistake that my kids make. It's their unwillingness to own it. And so it's such a big deal to me to teach them. I don't care. I mean, I do care, right? Of course I care, but I'm not as concerned about the mistake, because we all make mistakes, right? That's part of life. It's that they have yet to fully understand the importance of ownership. And so we too, as we go about our work, our business, and the things God's called us to, is we have to take ownership, okay? Then we have the first S in being a boss, right? If we want to boss up in our life, there's strategy. We have to learn how to develop and execute our daily tasks and missions and goals and timelines and all of the things, right? We're a very outcome-driven society. We want to know what's coming. I just had an incredible conversation with the husband of a couple we met a couple years ago. They're amazing. They run a nonprofit. And we were talking about this idea of needing to know, right? We always want to have measurable data, and I want to know, right? It's like I'm being called to something. I'm taking bold action. I'm learning to take ownership of all of my decisions and the outcomes. And yet I want to know that everything's going to work out. I want to know that everything's going to be exactly how I imagine it in my mind's eye. But everything's always, frequently changing. And so we have to learn how to bring in strategy. The problem with it is that we often implement our own strategies. And so my challenge is our strategy has to be something that God's put inside of us, right? And we need to go back to the integration of maybe prayer and reflection and the planning process. Luke 14 reminds us, 14:28, that it says, "For which of you desiring to build a tower does not first sit down and count the cost?" And so often in the world of work, business, entrepreneurial, journeys, is we want to have the tower, but a lot of times we don't sit down long enough to consider and strategize, or can figure out what the strategy that we're going to need in order to have and or build the tower. And I get it, because I think a lot of it's just human nature. It's impulse to get excited, to think, oh yes. But if I want to be a boss and I want to master my mindset, I have to learn to weigh the cost. Too often, in so many ways, this could be its own podcast, weighing the cost. We live in an instant gratification society. It's just part of what we have. Thank you, Amazon, for ruining all of our lives. And yet we all indulge in it because we've become so accustomed to instant gratification. And I can't wait more than 8 hours now to get a package delivered to my door by a random car sometimes that shows up, and you're like, is this person just turning around in my driveway? Oh, no, that's Amazon. Okay, cool. When it's not the Amazon truck, that's creepy sometimes. But again, it's just the principle of the truth is that I need to bring in strategy, and I need to learn to, if I desire something, first sit down and count the cost, map it out, right? I have to build solid strategies and have discipline that will actually bring about future growth, right? That's just the first S, right? So boldness, ownership, strategy. And again, you could be a stay-at-home parent. This isn't just indicative of, when I say business or work, I'm not just talking about your 9 to 5. I'm not talking about just your career. This could be any facet of what you do and put your hands to. Maybe you run a nonprofit. Again, maybe you are a work from home executive. Maybe you are just but a parent, right? They're all equal in value in how we put our best foot forward when it comes to the work we do. And then lastly, in order to be a boss, you need to have success. And here's what I mean by success. Let me break this down. When I say success, in order to build mindset mastery as a boss, or to embody the B.O.S.S acronym, probably is a better way to put that. Okay. I'm not just going to be bold and courageous. I'm not just going to take ownership. I'm not going to just sit down and strategize and figure out and weigh the cost of whatever it is I'm endeavoring to do. I'm going to learn how to bring about success. And success is to celebrate progress, big or small, right? Success can be, I think, something that we too often elevate and put on a pedestal. We attribute it to something as if it has to be so much more grandioso, if that's the word, grandioso, than something that we would consider small. And I think we rob ourselves when we don't understand that success comes in many forms. And it can be measured in so many different ways, right? And so we got to make sure that we're celebrating all of our progress along the journey, big or small. And we have to stay committed to continuous improvement, right? Success isn't achieving something, arriving and being done. I think success in one fashion can be described as continuous progress, continuous learning, and a willingness to improve upon any one position, right? It's celebrating how you had a setback and overcame it. It's celebrating how you woke up and started something, maybe for the first time. It's just progress towards the next milestone. And as long as we're alive and breathing, here's what I believe. There will always be a milestone. And it's not about striving. It's not about working harder. It's not about, necessarily trying to find the best, most perfect strategy either. It is, however, just recognizing and acknowledging that true success is when things align with your values and your faith, right? Proverbs 16:3 tells us, it says to commit our work, right? Commit whatever you do, okay, to the Lord. It says commit to the Lord whatever you do. I'm kind of paraphrasing it, but and he will establish your plans. So success is not just, again, like I said, an endpoint, but it's a continual process of consistent progress. It is a continual process of consistent progress. If there's something you want to write down in your life, write that down. That success is not an endpoint, but a continual process of consistent progress. We will always be in a place where we're needing to progress, not just to get ahead, not just to then say, hey, now I've achieved success, but because I want to continually grow. I want to be a boss. I want to do everything with boldness and courage, right? Putting all of my faith and trust in him and not being afraid or discouraged. I want to take ownership, knowing that there's going to be times where I have setbacks. I'm going to have wins and I'm going to have losses. I'm going to do everything that just by the grace of God is amazing. And other times I'm going to make mistakes, but I'm going to own them alike. And then I'm going to actually implement strategy. I'm going to have to actually take time to sit down and consider what it is I'm wanting to build, whether it's a tower, a business, a family, you name it. I have to consider the cost, but I'm going to do it by actually taking and committing that work to God. And I'm going to see that success is truly not somewhere I get, but it's that I'm continually growing and consistently progressing through the processes that were going to come our way. You guys, I'm going to keep this a little bit short and sweet. And so just to kind of wrap up with becoming a boss, the mindset for business, right? I want to master my mindset when it comes to business, my work, whatever it is you are in business with. When I say business, think of it this way. I'm just going about my business. What is your business today? It may be parenting. You may be an executive. You may be a coach. You may be so many different things. Just remember, do it with boldness and courage. Take ownership, strategize, put forth the plan that God wants to have you do it with. That is success. Commit all of your work to Him. Remember that the boss mindset is just integrating practical, business and the things you do on a daily, every day, and you're doing it with spiritual wisdom. You're combining the bold action, taking full ownership with accountability. You're strategically planning, and you're celebrating every success, big or small, along the way, because you've committed that work to the Lord. You guys, man, I encourage you so much. We need more bosses out there, if I may say it that way. Be a boss. You've got this. This is exactly why I started this podcast, because I want to continue to become better. I want to constantly and continually process or be in a process of consistent progress, because we don't arrive necessarily. I think the idea of arriving is so overrated, because then we fixate on getting somewhere and we then negate the process in which growth is happening in our everyday lives. And remember, it's okay. We're going to make mistakes. It's not going to be perfect as part of the process. So you guys, again, I appreciate you tuning in today and listening to the BOSS framework. Again, boldness, ownership, strategy, and success. Become a boss in your mindset when it comes to mastering your mindset in business and or work, or whatever it is you do when you go about your business. As always, you guys, sign up for the free email. Particularly, I'm making some really specific shifts. So if you're listening in, just know this. One of the things I'm building out on the back end that's kind of correlates to the podcast, but not directly, is that I'm working specifically with Christian entrepreneurs who want to build and scale their businesses without compromising their faith, marriage, family, and or business. Hey, so if that is you and you want to hop on a call and just get clarity, I'd love to do that. Sign up for a free coaching call. The link is here in the show notes. As always, I am Coach Sam Velasquez with the Mindset Mastery Podcast, and we will see you on the other side. Peace.
God forbid you are sitting in this place saying, I don't care about legacy. You need to care about it, because somebody's got to live in the life you have. You are passing something down whether you want to or not.